Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy. Pretty cold morning, frigid temperatures across just about all of southwest Alaska today. Nikolai, 55 degrees below zero this morning. McGrath at minus 53. And then this location here, which is northeast of Caltag, Caillou, a few miles northeast of Caltag, they had 52 below. Galena minus 51 and Toledo minus 50. Many of these temperatures still in the mid minus 40s at mid-afternoon today, but much warmer air and temperatures forecast to push northward across southern Alaska tomorrow. And by Sunday, many areas will rise above freezing. Otherwise, on the hazardous weather graphic, we've got wind chill advisory out until noon tomorrow for the Kuskokwim Delta. And that's for wind chills to 55 degrees below zero. And then for the Yukon Delta, that and the lower Yukon River Valley areas, as well as eastern Norton Sound and Lotto Hills, those wind chill advisories are out until 6 p.m. Saturday, again for wind chills to 55 degrees below zero. Same thing for St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast, and even the north side, although that's ending tonight. And taking a look to the north, we've got wind chill advisories here, mostly for tonight, ending tomorrow morning for the central eastern Alaska or Brooks Range here on the southern side, and then the Arctic coast. That wind chill advisory there for again 55 degree below zero wind chills. That's out for tonight, and also the northwest coast as well has those wind chill advisories out for tonight as well, with today Point Hope seeing gusts 55 miles per hour with wind chills. I think they were down like minus 60. Anyway, pushing on to satellite imagery, we had the system moved eastward here, the bulk of the moisture into the Panhandle. Had some clearing today, so much lighter precipitation really shutting off there across the southeast coast. Hanging on though in Juneau is kind of a band stuck right over them, this right through here, so snow falling into mid-afternoon today. That was also the heaviest amounts, Juneau 12 to 15 inches falling there, while Petersburg picked up about 8 inches, and Gustavus and Hoon, I believe, had about 5 or so. And then the heavy rain now really letting up that you had overnight in the southern areas, that letting up as well this afternoon as this system kind of edges a little bit farther to the east. Otherwise, we've got clouds gradually on the increase here for the North Gulf Coast, with some snow in Valdez on up into mainly along the eastern Copper River Basin and areas, very light snow, and the Wrangell Mountains. And then the white here, that's because the ground temperatures are so cold even into the afternoon. Again, with cold upper level low that's sitting right over the state. Milder conditions here in the east with more southerly wind flow component and some clouds with snow. Upper Yukon Valley, Fort Yukon, right up into Arctic Village, on out to the eastern Arctic coast. Light snow, but pretty widespread area light snow. And then pretty strong winds. In fact, you can make the ice edge out right there, that line. That's the ice edge, and then the winds blowing off of that until they pick clouds up. So you got a little bit of a clear area there, but it really shows where the ice edge is now. Almost back to a normal year for this time of year in the position there, and well south of Nunivak Island with those northeast winds gusting 50-55 miles per hour over the Pribilofs today. Temperatures falling in the lower 20s at St. Paul with light snow the entire day. Got the Arctic front just south of them there, but the Aleutians on the south side of the Arctic front, so about a third of an inch of rain fell in Unalaska today, with a mixture of rain or snow over the Alaska Peninsula. That really tapers off as you head northeast there, just some clouds. And then a little chillier out towards Shemya, west of Adak, on out to Shemya, mixed rain and snow occurring there in conjunction with this low center in that area. Otherwise, some areas of light snow again starting to develop here over the eastern Copper River Basin, but more widespread from the upper Yukon Valley on up to the eastern Arctic coast. And then enough of a gradient here, the western mountains, western Brooks Range, the long mountains, seeing those gusts, as I mentioned, Point Hope, 55 miles an hour out of the northeast. And then just down the coastline, Kivalina had calm winds. So quite a difference there, mostly confined to the Cape Lisburne, Point Hope area on those winds. Light snow, fog, flurries, Tin City, on down to St. Lawrence Island, and then the light snow, persistent light snow over the Pribilof Islands today. Otherwise, pretty clear conditions with light winds and quite chilly temperatures here, south central Alaska, and then of course north and west of the Alaska Range, the frigid temperatures. And you can see clearing out, nice afternoon there at Yakutat. Clouds, a little bit of a few skips of snow around Cordova. A little more persistent though up there in Prince William Sound, I'm sorry, up toward Valdez. And Kodiak picking up a few isolated snow showers around the area there as this moisture to the southwest increases. For tonight, that'll continue to increase. It doesn't look like anything heavy overnight tonight for Kodiak, but definitely the clouds will thicken. Temperatures start to rise and chances of precipitation will increase. And that trend will more or less continue here along the North Gulf Coast up into Prince William Sound. A little bit less now over the southeast interior. This area breaking off and moving off to the northeast. A rather clear area here through the central interior. And then warm front rain spread back in. Maybe slow down, maybe a short break, but anyway, that frontal boundary stays pretty stationary there, so chance of rain over the southern southeast coast, scattered showers, rain or snow to the north, and then rain and snow, eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, this low just south of the area there, easterly winds pretty gusty across the Aleutian Range, Bristol Bay, and upslope areas, Kamishak Bay, Iliamna, probably see some snow. And then from Dillingham to Togiak in the Auckland Mountains could see some snow. And still gusty winds, maybe diminishing a little bit. They've come down a little over the Pribilofs this afternoon. That may continue into tomorrow. And then for Saturday, still pretty breezy though, with better chance of snow or snow continuing there for the St. Paul, St. George areas as that cold air continues to slide out. So maybe not a day not too different from what you saw today there. And areas of blowing snow developing with the tightening gradient and the increasing moisture. So snow and blowing snow over the southwest interior areas and becoming breezy through much of the central and western interior of the state. Lighter winds up to the northeast with continued cold temperatures. Big push of warm air coming up with this front. Same thing going on in the Panhandle with that warm front pushing rain and wind into the central areas. And the outlook for Sunday, big push south to north flow here. Cold air retreating off to the northeast or back to the west and wrapping down into the western Bering Sea, on down into the Aleutians there with snowfall levels back down to sea level from, possibly Atka in the afternoon all the way out to Shemya. This low center 952 millibars coming up to west of Nikolsky. Look for strong winds, possible storm force winds, definitely gale force winds, warmer temperatures, and downsloping winds mean south central Alaska here rising into the upper 30s in the windy areas. So a big warm up in store for southern Alaska, and actually much of the state will see a good rise in the temperatures over the weekend. Scattered showers in the Panhandle. Lows for tonight, minus 40s here, north and northwest of the Alaska Range, minus 30s to maybe lower minus 40s all the way up to the North Slope. Otherwise, right around zero near Cook Inlet, below zero away from the inlet, 10 to 20 below in the Matanuska-Susitna Valley, and quite a range there over the southern southeast coast. Highs for tomorrow coming up into the upper teens, Cook Inlet, and even mid-20s down toward Homer. And near 40 for Kodiak, staying well below zero north of the mountains and northwest out into the northern Bering Sea. And the Panhandle, not too bad, upper 20s north, say at Skagway, Haines, to near 40 down toward Heidelberg and Annette. Otherwise, look for 40 near Kodiak and near 40 for the Aleutians. Lows the following morning here, still far below zero up in the northeast and the Arctic coast and North Slope. But lows not too much lower than the highs for tomorrow for Sunday morning here for southern Alaska, and then the afternoon highs, some areas rising into the upper 30s to near 40, especially down toward Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, and edging up above zero in the Tanana Valley, and much warmer in the north as well. Southeast coast, mid-30s to lower to mid-40s there for the Panhandle. Upper 30s to lower 40s, Alaska Peninsula on out to the Fox Islands near the freeze point for St. Paul.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
A lot of IFR here across the southern Bering Sea to about, the central Aleutians, all the way eastward into, up to about Cape Newenham, southern Alaska Peninsula. Marginal Kodiak, some IFR. Conditions deteriorating for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound here. Even into southern Cook Inlet late tonight with the IFR in the Gulf. VFR holds over the interior. And some IFR up over the far northeast and the North Slope. And marginal VFR with IFR over the southern southeast coast. Well, that spreads all the way up to Lincoln Glacier Bay here for the Panhandle tomorrow. The big swath of IFR extending westward to Kodiak, gradually lifting into the southern Kenai Peninsula area, Kamishak Bay. But really just all IFR here to the south, Bristol Bay, southern Bering Sea, Alaska Peninsula, all of the Aleutians shifting northward here to the southwest coast. VFR in the interior, St. Lawrence Island through the Chukchi Sea, just a patch of marginal stuff on the central Arctic coast. And for Sunday morning, good VFR again in the interior, northward on out to the Arctic. And some IFR here, conditions really starting to come down with the big push southerly winds, warm air, moisture coming up. So marginal VFR could become IFR late in the day along the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. Definitely in the Prince William Sound, southern Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak IFR, lots of IFR, central eastern Bering Sea, central Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, IFR right into the southeast coast. For the afternoon, that breaks up a little bit, but stays marginal at best. IFR back up to the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound. And downsloping VFR here for the Susitna and Matanuska Valley areas, but Cook Inlet marginal. IFR, Western Alaska Range, increases as you head out toward the coast, but stays VFR, central interior, especially north of the Alaska Range, all the way out to the Arctic. And IFR holds over the central and eastern Bering Sea, and then diminishes a little bit down toward the Aleutians. And for Anaktuvuk, looks good tomorrow. Another VFR day coming up there, as well as for Adigan. Lake Clark and Merrill look for a gradual deterioration in conditions with sea lanes gradually falling down to marginal, especially on the eastern entrances throughout the day. And for Rainy, same trend, taking a little longer though, may not become marginal until late afternoon or maybe even early evening. Windy though, staying VFR, Isabel VFR, and Mentesta VFR, Tanita. Also, we'll see some increase in the mid and high level clouds, but staying VFR through the day. And for Portage, marginal VFR occasionally all day long. Chilkoot and White starting out marginal, becoming IFR, and then staying that way the entire weekend. And for the freezing levels here at the surface, you can see the southerly flow here bringing milder air up into the Panhandle, 2,000 feet, though getting into the northern part there, but not quite, and then 4,000 to 5,000 feet on down toward Dixon Entrance. So at the surface, North Gulf Coast is for early tomorrow morning, and Shelikof Strait, and south of the Pribilof, still in the cold air there, and milder down over the Aleutians, but not all that much. And for icing, maybe some isolated moderate here, a swath from the far western zones there, Shimei and Attu. Eastward to about Atka, and icing free the remainder of the Bering Sea, Bristol Bay, and then moisture coming up. Could be some considerable moderate, not very widespread though, mostly terrain enhanced Kodiak Island and the Aleutian Range. Icing threats increase, southern Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, especially Kamishak Bay. Main icing area will be here over the central and southern southeast coast above about 6,000 feet. And for the jet stream, southeast flow, really southerly flow carrying that moisture into the Panhandle. Also southerly flow pushing northward, that cold upper level low over the central interior today or the southwest. Shifting up to the north, beginning to move actually currently, and we'll be up in this position by tomorrow afternoon. Warm southerly flow following in behind. Otherwise a main jet well to the south of the Aleutians. 9,000 feet, southeast 50 knots right into the Barren Islands, southern Kenai Peninsula. 35 knots in the interior, really drops off and turns more easterly as you head north. And the low south of the central Aleutians, strongest wind field will be down to the south there, but still some pretty good easterlies up to 35 knots on the north perimeter of that, and the wind's increasing here. Mostly the southern panhandle in conjunction with this system down near the Queen Charlotte's. 35 knots there, 25 to 35 lighter as you head north. Copper River Basin southeast 30, 3,000 feet. Lighter winds here over the eastern and central interior. Easterlies 25 to 30. Central western Arctic coast coming up to 35 knots, Prince of Wales Island. Easterlies 25 to 35, maybe as high as 45 to as much as 50 knots out over the western Aleutians.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us today is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Thank you for joining us, Eric.
My pleasure, Dave.
Thank you. And you're joining us here to talk a little bit more about satellites and how satellites work, and especially one neat feature that's working over Alaska right now. What is that?
Well, there's a lot of weather satellites and a lot of instruments on these satellites, and there are new generations going up and new instruments. This includes something called the day-night band, which is not a cover band at the local bar, but it's a new satellite that is very useful, especially here in Alaska, especially in the winter.
In the wintertime, yeah, that makes it a little bit hard to use some of the normal tools that we associate with weather satellite imagery.
Right. You know, one of the classic weather satellite instruments is just visible light. What would the human eye see if you were riding on a weather satellite yourself and looked down and it was black and white? You'd see the clouds reflecting the sunlight. And we've got an example from the Pacific Ocean. There's a geostationary satellite, and we can see that the eastern side of the image is in daylight. The western side, it's night over there, so you don't see anything because there's no sunlight over there. And visible imagery, it's very intuitive. You see the clouds just like you see them standing on the ground, but now you're a satellite seeing them from above. But the problem is, what about the night side of the planet? How do you track the storms? How do you know where the rain is, the snow, the weather, if you can't see the clouds? And that's why, just like a television can change from one channel to another, or a radio can change stations, satellites can change the frequency of the electromagnetic spectrum that they're looking at. We can go to infrared instead of visible light. You know, it's heat energy. You can see heat, and we've got another satellite picture from the same time, same satellite, out over the Pacific Ocean. That's the infrared side, and we're seeing temperature there. And even at night, when there's no light, everything still has a temperature.
So we're sensing something with a thermometer instead of perhaps the visible side of that, is what you're saying?
That's right. On this depiction, colder features are lighter shades, warmer features are dark. And so clouds tend to be colder than the ground. Clouds are higher in the atmosphere, it's cooler. And so that very same image on the western, or the left-hand side of the globe, now we can see the clouds there, even though it's nighttime, because we're seeing the temperatures. And one nice feature is that tropical storm there, just in the middle of the northern hemisphere there, hurricane or typhoon, depending on...
That's that swirly part that we see in the middle of the image?
There you go. You can even see the eye on it there, especially in the infrared image. So we've got two kinds of imagery there from the same satellite, different instruments, you know, different channels like on a television, visible and infrared. You know, it turns out there's no one magic tool. Each has its strengths, each has its flaws, weaknesses. The visible is nice, it's intuitive, it's easy to understand, but doesn't work at night. Infrared is nice, it works at night, you can see temperatures, but there is a catch. What if your clouds and the nearby bare ground or open water, what if those were about the same temperature?
Oh, that's going to be hard to figure out what's going on.
If you can only see temperature and you have two features that are the same temperature, they will look the same. You won't be able to tell. They're camouflaged. This happens, especially, it can happen around Alaska, especially over the ocean when you have low clouds that are the same temperature as the open water.
That happens quite a bit in Alaska.
We have an example. Now, this is from a different geostationary satellite. It's down over the Atlantic Ocean. Look in the South Atlantic. In infrared, we've highlighted in a yellow circle there. There's some patches of clouds, but it looks like there's a clear area in the middle of that image. That's the infrared look. But let's take a look at the visible channel, and we can see there's a stripe of clouds across the middle of that circle that is only visible in the visible. The trick here is that those are low clouds of about the same temperature as the surrounding ocean. So from an infrared point of view, where you're seeing temperature, the clouds in the water nearby are the same temperature, they look the same. It's only on the visible that you can see what stands out as the actual imagery. Two tools, each have their strengths and weaknesses. Can we combine them? That's where the day-night band comes in.
Oh, okay.
It's a super sensitive visible sensor that can actually see by moonlight. It can even see the aurora.
Wow.
And in Alaska, we have long winter nights. We can use that day-night band. Here's an example from that storm that blew the Kullik drilling platform ashore near Kodiak Island in December back in 2012. This image is right near when that storm happened, and it's in the middle of the night in December.
But this looks like visible imagery.
Looks like daytime imagery. It's amazing. That sensor can take any little bit of moonlight and just make the most of it. We can see so much detail. Even in the northern part of the image there, you can see some aurora up there. The northern lights
That's that band that goes across the Arctic slope?
You got it. That's the northern lights. We're seeing black and white image here, so you don't get the green or the purple colors there. But that is the aurora. There's another example of the day-night band, and this is from January of 2013. It's about 4 in the morning, and this is a snapshot from Weather Service software. And we can even see in the middle of the image, there's the lights of Fairbanks and North Pole over to Eielson Air Force Base. Anchorage and Matsu lights, city lights, are evident as well. We can see, even though it's 4 in the morning in January, there is no sunlight to be had, that just enough moonlight is available that this sensor can see that. So we're trying to solve that puzzle where visible light is good, but only during the daytime. IR is good at night, but you can't see the difference between clouds and ground sometime. The day-night band is an attempt to do the best of both with one tool. And it's brand new for Alaska here, and we're hoping to use it in the forecast process and help predict storms, weather patterns, to help get good forecasts for people.
Okay, another tool in the weather toolkit for meteorologists in Alaska and researchers worldwide. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today. And you can learn more about Dehne and the day-night band by going to the web address that you see on your screen. For Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis, all the really cold air up here coming southeastward, those northeast winds all the way down to the Pribilofs, continuing to see a southwestward movement of the ice edge here, which is actually mostly open water right along this area here, that light blue zone, and then the heavier stuff back away from that. And also continuing to increase here in Cook Inlet. And look for 15 to 25 nautical miles more of an advance southwestward over the next 5 days. And eventually some warmer easterly winds are going to work northward here, and then it'll kind of become parallel to the ice edge, and then the advance will halt. And for the coastal water forecast, west 25 on the south coast, turning northeast here on the central coast, north coast, east to 20, north 30, Lynn Canal, north 25, gust 40, Stevens Passage, southeast 25 for Clarence Strait. Sunday, east 15 there for Clarence Strait, same thing for Stevens Passage, south 20, reversal in the wind direction there for Lynn Canal and Glacier Bay, southeast 15 to 20 on the south coast, these seas 15 to 16 feet. And for Prince William Sound, northeast 20 knots, small craft advisories for the North Gulf Coast, easterlies 25 to 30 knots, seas at about 10 feet. And the Barrens, gales, 14-foot seas. Storm warnings out for Kamishak Bay tomorrow, northeast 50. Good gales south of the Forelands here at 40 knots, and small craft advisories for northern Cook Inlet. Outlook for Sunday, small craft advisories, northeast 25 to 30 for the inlet, southeast 40 for Kamishak Bay. Gales here for the western North Gulf Coast and the Barrens out of the southeast, 15 to 17-foot seas. Southeast 30, 14-foot seas for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Tomorrow for the east side of Kodiak, east winds 30 knots. Gales out of the northeast for Shelikof Strait, northeast 30 for Bristol Bay. And Pacific side of the peninsula, southeast 30 knots, 20-foot seas, east 30 on the Bering Sea side with 11-foot seas. And then for Sunday, we've got south to southeasterlies here. 30 knots coming across the peninsula with 28-foot seas on the Pacific side. Southeasterly gales in the forecast for Bristol Bay, and 30-knot winds here on up towards Sitkinak. Southerly gales east side of Kodiak, southeast 30 for Shelikof Strait. Out in the Aleutian, storm warnings, northeast 50 knots for the western zones out there, and then gale warnings here into the central Aleutians, becoming more east-northeasterly and getting down into minimum gale category, and then small crafts from there across the Fox Islands, all out of the east, 25 to 30 knots. Seas as high as 21 feet. And then for Sunday, southwest, west-southwest, mostly southwest, small craft advisories, 20 to 30 knots here for the eastern Aleutians. Lighter winds on tap for the central Aleutians, 15 to 25 out of the north-northwest, and then northerlies gradually increase, but no gales. 30 knots is as strong as they get out west. And for the southwest coast, continued cold air pouring southeastward here, 30-knot winds, 10-foot seas in the whatever's left of the open area there south of Nunivak Island, and northeast 30 for the Pribilofs. Gale warning, St. Matthew Island, 25 knots for St. Lawrence Island. And for Sunday, northerlies, north gales, 35 for St. Lawrence Island. Southeast now, warmer air slipping on up south of Nunivak Island at 30 knots. Small crafts for the Pribilofs. Gales continue for St. Lawrence Island, and northeast 30 for Norton Sound. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, central coast as well as the west side. Northeast 10 to 15 knots. Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, northeast 20, then back down to 15 knots there for the Chukchi Sea. And those pick up a little bit, northeast 20 here, and then Cape Thompson on up the coastline. We've got brisk wind advisories out. Winds, general increase in the winds here out of the east along the entire stretch of the coastline, up to 30 knots, so brisk wind advisories in all those areas. For tonight, you got some snow exiting that area slowly, light snow, and kind of clouds lingering back to the north. Clear and cold here over the interior, but temperatures trending up, especially here across southern Alaska and North Gulf Coast, Bristol Bay, and all the moisture down along the Alaska Peninsula, rain or snow lifting north of the central Aleutians, rain, southern Panhandle, more widespread rain with that system into the central Panhandle tomorrow. Big push of warm air here coming northward with rain and strong winds here for the eastern Aleutians, and area of moderate to heavy rain for the North Gulf Coast, with definitely temperatures rising above freezing in the windy areas of southern Alaska. Quite windy, snow and blowing snow for St. Lawrence Island to the Bering Strait, and cold air coming southward here into the Aleutians with numerous snow showers out in that area. That's a look at the weather. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.
Alaska's North Slope is home